Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, Katy Perry, is she a robot or is she something else? Her eyes, doing some funky things. We're going to talk about that and a lot more of these woke idiots that are like, literally burning the country down. We're also going to talk about, election deniers. Who are they? Is it possible that
Democrats.
Hillary Clinton might be one of those? Even Ted Cruz is, going out on a limb and trying to prove that that's actually a thing. Also, the Moderna CEO admits that that COVID might actually be more like a seasonal flu. It's good news for us, and definitely something you want to tell your friends.
Told you
And
so.
finally, Trudeau, he did it. He freaking did it. He banned the guns, and we're not happy about it. So we're going to talk about that and so much more today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast.
All right, we are back for another Tuesday news day.
Are you happy now? You happy?
I know.
Did I do
I
it
know.
right this time?
You did a wonderful job with this intro. Everybody clap for Danny.
Thanks. Oh, thanks. I need that affirmation. I really do.
And then clap
I
for me because that looks dope.
dope.
It does look dope.
Steven's always improving. Always
It was
improving.
an accidental thing, but once I saw it, I could not go back.
He almost peed his pants. It was pretty funny.
No. Did not happen.
It's like, I think I peed a little. I'm like, whoa, okay, buddy. Whoa.
No, did
Oh,
not
too
be a little.
excited.
Did
Little
not
too
be a little.
excited.
Anyways,
It was good.
before we jump into the news of the Tuesday,
Mhm.
how was your weekend, Daniel?
Good. It was decent. I went to 3 churches, if you can believe that. Center Street, what was it? Another church in Parkdale, and also I went to I went back to Center Street just because I wanted to see the worship, and I was like, 2 songs. That's it. That's all you got. I'm like,
What?
wow, that's they only did 2 songs at the beginning. I could be wrong. Maybe they blended like a third one in there, and I just didn't notice because it blended in. But I was like,
Yeah.
really, 2 songs? Like that just seemed like a very short like worship set. Um, but I also went to a Latino church, which is basically it's all Spanish, and I was like, I know I belong here, but I also feel like I
Hola,
don't
Senor
belong here.
Danny.
Hey, what you talking about? They didn't even have the tacos. It was a very big
What?
disappointment. No tacos. They
The
only had
tacos and the bodegas?
they only had the quesadillas and the
Oh.
chimichangas and
And
the
then finish off with the churros.
Oh, the churros was good, but no tacos. What kind of worship service is this without
I
tacos?
know. See, he can do Mexican. It's just,
I gotta get into it. I gotta get.
he
into
had
it.
to develop it. A Mexican had to relearn his Mexican accent.
Si, senor.
Mhm.
It was a tough time, but
Yep.
I got it. I got it.
It's like yours is like half Mexican, half Scottish. It's hilarious. To
That's the
listen
problem.
to.
When I think about it too much, then it switches, and I'm like, it's tough keeping them
They
separate.
will
That's
take
the
our
problem.
tacos, but they will never take our
They'll take our,
freedom.
they may take our tacos, but they'll never take our freedom.
Yep.
Got roll the R's.
Yep. I can't. I am white.
Yeah, that's just sad. That's definitely why you cannot speak Spanish.
I
'Cause
can't speak Spanish.
You gotta
but
be able to
can talk
roll
like it.
your R's.
I can talk with a Mexican accent.
Oh, you can.
Yep.
You sound
Arriba,
very-
arriba, arriba.
vote for Pedro, senor.
Exactly. Pedro the Pimp.
Pedro the Pimp.
Anyways, my weekend was fairly uneventful, but my Friday was just like the most boring day ever.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was raining, and so the Edmonton guys are like, "Okay, Steven, so we're just gonna head out and go back to Edmonton." And I'm like, "All right, what am I gonna do?" And he's like, "Well, a truck's supposed to show up, and it's gonna deliver insulation. So unload it, and then you can go home. Should be coming in the next hour." This was about at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 12, I called my boss, and I'm like, "Hey, there's," and he's like, "Oh, like, thanks for unloading that truck for us. Like, thanks for sticking around. I know it's kind of boring being by yourself. And I'm like, I did not do that. And then he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, there has not been a truck yet. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, there's been no truck. And he's like, okay, I'm going to call them. Calls them. And he's like, oh yeah, like they messed up. It's coming at the end of the day. And he's like, so it'll probably be here by 2. And I'm like, it's not the end of the day, but okay. And so 2:00 comes around. I'm like, all right, still not here. I'll give my boss a call at 3. 3:00, still no truck. And he's like, what the heck is going on? And so finally the truck shows up at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I unload it and weigh it down. And then I go home. And then my boss is like, I don't really want, like, it's sucks for the company that I have to pay you 10 hours for sitting in your van all day. And I'm like, yeah, my legs are so stiff.
Yeah, thank goodness for like podcasts.
I was like, yeesh. Oh yeah, I was listening to stuff and playing games on my phone all day.
Podcasting it all day. That's the only way to survive.
I was like, man. I am so bored.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? You did not have it as bad as Katy Perry had.
No.
Recently. So
did not.
When we talk about that, because she's something's definitely up with this poor lady. We got to figure it out.
Yep.
So where did this take place, Stephen? Do you remember?
This took place at a concert.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I know where this concert took place, but basically, like, what happened is, and this has been on so many different places, so many news sites. So Katy Perry, obviously, like big time performer, something happened with her face.
Yit
couldn't
control her eye.
She couldn't control her eyes. So let's take a look at what that looks like.
Have you seen this video yet, Denny?
I have. It was so bizarre.
It was super bizarre.
Yeah. Get in there. All right.
Right here.
Getting closer.
Her left eye starts to go, and then her right eye just slowly closes, and she can't open it.
Uh-oh.
So she does it with her hand.
It's stuck.
It falls again.
Nope. Still stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've heard some theories about this. I've heard theories from, obviously, like, some people are saying that her eyelash, like, because, like, I guess, like, if you're a girl, you understand this whole thing. But some people are suggesting that she has eyelash glue because, like, like she has fake eyelashes and so she uses glue, and they were suggesting that, like, it got stuck, and so she had to unstick it to open it up. But if you actually look, she doesn't actually touch the eyelash or the eye.
She touches right here,
the side of her head. Yeah, like the temple, which doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you touch the temple if your eye can open by itself?
It's a muscle issue.
Right. So the second question is, the second theory people are throwing out is that like she's a robot. I couldn't believe that was actually something that was like going around. People were like suggesting, like, like, oh, she's like,
I haven't seen anybody suggesting that.
No, people are legitimately like
the most common ones I saw was eyelash glue, Bell's palsy, and then the third one was by Katy Perry fans, and then apparently she's had like a wonk eye,
weird kind of wonky eye that she's.
But the wonk eye is usually the other one.
Yeah, so like normally, whenever they show pictures of her eye, and her eye's kind of half closed or like not, or more closed than the other one. But you don't see what you see here, which is, it's bizarre when you look at it. It is so bizarre because you're thinking, like, an eyeball doesn't do that like naturally. Like, it's like she press on a muscle to basically, like, cause the eye to like almost like open up or release, I guess. But then it just goes right back to what it did before. So it seems very similar to that girl that we showed the video of, that girl, just an actress who she got Bell's palsy. I think it was Bell's palsy, and she was saying, like, her eye was like one side of her face is totally messed up, right? So, and a lot of people were comparing what it looked like to what happened to Justin Bieber. Now, some people obviously are saying, like, like, oh, stop blaming everything on the vaccine that makes you look bad. I'm like, well, here's the problem. There are no honest and intentional investigations into any of these things. They
Mm-hmm.
want to sweep everything under the rug. So unfortunately, you can't actually get to the bottom of these things and find out if they're related because they, everyone who's in power, everyone who has the power to actually investigate these things is not doing so. So unfortunately, you're left to just guessing. And my guess is I'm going to go with the most likely possibility, which is that something's going on with her eye and her face, and it's probably related to vaccine because we've seen that before, and it would not be like too far off from the realm of possibility. So that seems to be my guess. Another possibility is that she's suffering from some other um like facial tick or something like that. That might be totally unrelated to the vaccine. Who knows? I'll leave it up to you guys to decide.
Yep.
Right. But here's the thing. This next story from Not the Bee is interesting because Stephen, did you see Katy Perry before she became Katy Perry?
Oh, and she was like
Like a
Catherine
darling.
Hudson was her
Yeah.
name?
She was Catherine Hudson. She was a little sweetheart and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then she
She
became
wasn't
Katy Perry.
exceptionally popular.
No, but she was just a regular, just a regular girl, right? And one of the things that Hollywood, either the music industry or Hollywood, tends to do to young girls and people generally, is it turns them into weird, bizarre, totally distorted versions of themselves. You see that with Miley Cyrus. You see that with Demi Lovato, the one who
Ooh.
like it's really bizarre.
Yep.
They turn from like actually respectable looking people to completely bizarre
Yep.
people, and that was
Basically
really
freaks.
evident. This was really evident in this story from Not to Be. This is something called glow ups, which is basically people who used to be part of a conservative household, and then after they leave, they suddenly become their true selves. But look at how they actually
Mm-hmm.
become. Go ahead and take it away, Stephen.
So, oh, the pain and torment of growing up in a conservative household,
Ah,
Judeo
horrible.
Christian values, two parents, personal responsibility. Please make it stop.
Oh God, no.
It turns out that when you grow up in a nice conservative household and want to make it stop, you automatically turn into a woke blue-haired tranny. Who knew? TikTokers, desperate for love from strangers from the internet, shared what they think to be glow-ups after leaving their awful conservative household. Some of it may shock you.
Yeah, like some of these are brutal. So like,
Yeah.
actually, no, they have it on the story. Like if you actually go
Well,
back
but
to
this
the
is a bigger picture.
no, they have them better on the other one.
I guess they're
Yeah.
about the same, yeah.
No, go down. They have one by one.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the original girl. This is Cherry Emoji Girl or Cherry
Cherry
Emoji Girl.
emoji girl.
Okay, you see her there with her mom in Disneyland,
Yep.
looking fairly like
Reasonably
fairly
nice.
regular, right? Then you
Yep.
have her in her cheerleading outfit, and then you have the da 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 da. Like she
Yeah.
went from a girl who's actually like looks like not nothing out of like just she's actually like fairly like nice looking
Yep.
girl, looking like legitimately bizarre,
Yeah.
like a clown show kind of person. Still looks nice, but I think that's
Not
because
as
I mean
nice.
no. But like she keeps scrolling
And
down.
she's definitely the more tame.
Yes, she's the more tame. But then you keep scrolling down and you see
Yeah.
the
And
other
then it
people. So
gets
this is like
really what's this? Typical rainbow, I'm just so funky and cool look. So
so
graduating from the University of Notre Dame
yeah.
to basically short hair lesbian.
Yep. That's basically the image I got with like jogging pants.
Yeah.
This girl who's super shy, like she's basically like Violet from The
Yeah.
Incredibles,
Mm-hmm.
to wearing completely over the top.
Massive rainbow wigs.
Uh huh. This one wasn't too bad.
And then
This one was really bad. Like, look at this
yeah.
girl.
Yeah, things definitely went the wrong way.
Like straight to like blue hair, tattoos everywhere. This one was bizarre,
Oh yeah, it's a guy
right?
to a still a guy but with white hair and earrings.
Looks like the guy from the Matrix,
Yeah.
those weird German guys.
Yeah, and then yeah,
What
that's
the
my
heck?
reaction too.
This one was really off.
And then full trans non-binary make believe,
Hmm.
which I think that he's pretending to be a girl,
Definitely,
but
with the
with a
beard.
beard.
Definitely the beard.
Girl pretending to be a boy. Yeah,
With
that's
the crazy neck tattoos and all
yep.
this. Hmm. And then you have
Girl
like,
also pretending to be a boy. Terrible,
yeah,
terrible look. Terrible look.
yeah, and then you could see the resemblance, right?
Yeah.
Same with this one. This one was
Oh,
really
they just
sad.
keep. Oh yeah. This
Yeah, they
one.
just
These
get
two are sad.
yeah.
Like really decent looking girls, and then they just look terrible as pretend boys.
Yeah,
This one looks awful.
yeah, went completely the opposite way and all that. See, this is what this is why there's I think there was a it must have been a Babylon Bee or a Freedom Tunes cartoon where like it was like their kid came back from like university for Thanksgiving and
Mm-hmm.
starts freaking out and all that, and then pretty soon after freaking out enough, he turns into like a like the turkey or something like that or something. But this is a real legitimate
Yeah.
concern for parents everywhere. Your kids go either to schools like high schools or elementary schools, or especially they go to university and they come back home and they hate you.
They are brainwashed puppets.
They're absolutely destroyed. And so this is what the woke culture does to these kids. It convinces them that they are like the ultimate victims, that they can be good people if they will adopt this. Like it's a cult. And unfortunately it eats them up and chews them out and creates absolutely very distorted people. And this was super evident in the story from the Daily Mail about this drag show, which I hate to say it, these drag shows are becoming worse and worse.
And more
So,
common.
yes.
So, child drag show sparks clashes between armed left and right wing protesters outside Oregon pub named after Satan.
Oh, that's got to be good.
Okay. As it's revealed, one of the 11-year-old performer's drag moms is a suspected pedophile. So, child performer Vanellope McPherson DuPont's act was ditched at the last minute. It has since emerged that one of Vanellope's drag moms is a suspected pedophile. Kelsey Metaborin is in custody facing charges of 3 child sex offenses.
Oh, boy.
So, some demonstrators on both sides of the roughly 200-strong standoff were armed. Despite the chaotic scene, the event still went ahead, although the child performer, whose stage name is Vanellope McPherson DuPont, reportedly did not take to the stage as planned. And since emerged, the woman who claimed to be, the wicked shall be cast over into
cast into
hell,
and
all the nations that
the
forget
nations
God.
that forget God. Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. It's a very religious
The corruption
sign.
of innocence is never accepted. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, did you watch any of the Nashville, Tennessee event?
I watched a little bit. Like they obviously had like they obviously had the what do you call it? The protesters out there in the background, but they never really showed them. But yeah, no, it was really good. It was good to see them kind of make that whole thing work and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's one thing I think we should point out. Go scroll down to the picture of the girl. Well, I don't even know if it's a girl or a boy. I probably a boy actually
Well,
dressing
if
up like
it's a drag queen, then it is a boy.
it's a boy. Okay, so this is a boy dressed up like a drag queen. So here's the question. Okay, now I'll post this to you, maybe to our audience too. Like maybe you guys can decide and comment
Mm-hmm.
what you think. How is this not the same as those what are those pageants? Those like
Oh,
beauty
like
pageants,
the beauty pageant for like
little girls,
preteens
like
or little
yeah,
girls?
yeah,
Like
those kind of
basically
pageants.
Tori's age?
Yes, I've heard people make that comparison. Stephen, can you tell us why? Like, are these morally equivalent?
Well, I'm not defending beauty pageant for kids,
Okay,
but this is worse.
okay. Why
Because
is it worse?
the beauty pageant for the young girls
Hmm.
is moving them and putting them in outfits and in makeup and having them perform before they're really ready to do it
Hmm.
and emotionally mature to handle the pressure and the stress, and it's sexualizing them too early.
Yeah.
But it's not sexualized, it's not hyper aggrandizing their sexuality.
Hmm.
Mostly it's just like, okay, well, you're going to wear a tutu and you're going to have a little ballerina dance that you're going to do.
Yeah.
There's no
Okay.
sexual content. It's really just, okay, how pretty and dolled up can we make them?
Yeah.
This,
Hmm.
by comparison, is also trying to make them quote unquote pretty and dolled up, but it's also going directly into hypersexualization
Hmm.
because these kids often will do the types of dances in which they will get paid in dollar bills like they are strippers.
They're basically like cuties.
Yes, they are like
Yeah.
cuties. And
Hmm.
they are dancing in very seductive ways. The
Hmm.
entire show is about rampant sexualization of children.
Yeah.
So
I remember.
I'm not condoning either, but
Yeah.
this is 10 times worse.
Yeah. I remember years ago when I used to work in childcare, we had like a talent show or something like that. Like, and the kids could do whatever they want. They wanted to do, they type music or do like Arabic guitar or something like that. But there was these. I heard from my friend because they never went through with it, but she was kind of like doing a drive run with them beforehand, and it turned out that these I think it was three girls wanted to do kind of like this like Beyonce style, very sexualized dance, and she was like, "Nope, not happening, not gonna happen, not doing it, done, sorry." And they were upset, but like it was like, no, we're not doing that. We're not gonna give you the ability to go up there and twerk in front of like kids and parents. I was
Oh,
like,
and
no,
this
not gonna
this is the
happen.
pedophile suspect. Yes,
Yeah.
they're totally not a pedophile.
No, they don't look like a pedophile. They don't look creepy at all.
They just look exceptionally demonic, and it's just like, I desire children.
Well, this is the deep dark secret that the LGBT kind of community like always wants to completely avoid, which is the pedophile problem
Yeah.
within the community. Obviously, it's kind of like with like Black Lives Matter. One of the biggest elephants in the room that they always want to avoid is why do Black Americans commit so much more of the crime disproportionately outside of their demographics. That's what they want to avoid. What the dark secret of the LGBT community is that there is, for the amount of people in that community, there's an extraordinarily large amount
Of
of pedophiles
pedophiles.
in that community, and we've covered this over a couple
Danny,
of
we
years.
have to be politically correct. We refer to them as minor attracted persons
Called
because we
groomers.
have to be wary of their feelings while they're violating children sexually.
Totally groomers.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay,
thing
groomer.
Okay, Groomer. That the thing was with these people though is that okay, so it's basically no different than a strip show. It's a strip show with clothes on. That's really what it is. Like they've had kids on poles, right? Like the dancing poles. They try to make it sound like, oh, that's just like nothing. I'm like, no, no, no. That is a stripper pole. You should not have a kid even touching that thing, much less dancing on it. But that doesn't. It's the same for whether
Sanitize,
kids.
sanitize.
It's the same for whether or not you're like the kids are performing or the adults are performing. Because we have seen some drag show performers that the kind of things that they do are even too graphic for any kind of like regular person. Did you see that mom, Stephen, that went up and she's like, you can't just add family friendly as a magic sticker that makes everything
It makes
okay.
everything okay because it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, that's what they do. They take this magical like sticker called the family friendly, stick it on like the most perverted thing possible, and like, oh, it's all good now. So like it was a great speech. I wish we could have covered it, but it was good to cover. But yeah, this is what's happening. It's getting worse. They're getting more brazen. The fact that there are people there with guns shows how much these people hate
Yep.
any kind of opposition. It's really sad. So, anyways, take us in. It gets worse, by the way.
It gets worse. Well, there's more
Also,
incidents with guns,
yeah.
but this time the guns are actually being held by the good people.
No.
So armed individuals in tactical gear are showing up at Arizona ballot boxes. So, armed individuals dressed in tactical gear surveilling ballot drop boxes in Arizona, raising concerns about intimidation during early voting in the midterm elections. The Maricopa County Elections Department said 2 people with weapons were spotted at a ballot drop box in Mesa on Friday. The 2 wore masks. Realistically, they wore balaclavas to obscure their faces and left the area after the county sheriff's office responded. And on Saturday night, 4 people, 2 of them reportedly armed with handguns, got into a confrontation at the same drop box when another individual arrived and attempted to record their license plate information. He chased over at me and pushed me and grabbed me as I was pulling the cloth of his license plate to video his license plate. The woman, who is dressed as a nun, told KTVK News, "I just felt fair is fair. They're videotaping voters' license plates, so I didn't think it was really a big deal to photograph theirs." And of course, this person's just like, people don't generally like having private information photographed by strangers. And then this is the covering that they were using.
To be fair, a license plate is not exactly private information.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
So, I mean,
but you do know that, like, the reason that they're covering their license plate is because they know that the liberals and Antifa will dox them and come for their families.
Exactly.
But Danny, before we even talk about it, how do you feel about them watching the ballot boxes?
Well, if I remember, like, going through, I still have to see it like that. There's a documentary called
2000 Mules.
2000 Mules. Okay. Which, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you see it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I still want to see it, but it's supposed to be good. But there are problems in the American voting system, and one of the most easy to exploit issues is ballot boxes, because we heard stories of ballot boxes, whether it's Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, like lots of places where the chain of custody was broken on a lot of them, where they couldn't actually track the chain of custody. And also, people would go to these ballot boxes with massive amounts of voting ballots, and they would drop them in. Now, that should be concerning. And if you're going to say you election, darn right I'm questioning election problems, because if you think that people are not that nobody's going to try to cheat, you're an idiot.
Yep.
Because anybody who this is the reason why we create.
Well, leading up to the election in 2020, we covered plenty of stories about ballot harvesting.
Jeez,
and
so
the 2000 Mules movie. Now, of course, we can't say for 100% that it's proof, but it alleged, and we think that it's fairly serious and obviously pretty good information and evidence, that there were tens of thousands of ballots that were artificially dropped off and harvested, and that these people would do this over and over and over again, and sometimes into 1, 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. And this isn't circumstantial evidence, by the way. This is like he goes into how this evidence is fairly compelling.
Yeah,
evidence.
It is.
In a court of law, that would be okay, that's fairly decent evidence. It's not hard, bam, undisputable proof, but it's very strong evidence. So I'm not surprised that there are people who are genuinely concerned about elections and about election integrity that are trying to take these matters, because obviously in Arizona, we know that Maricopa County was one of the ground zeros of election questions, right? So I'm not surprised that people are trying to take this matters into their own hands. One of the problems is that we know that the liberals have no morals.
Yep.
They don't. The ends always justifies the means with them, which is why I'm not surprised to see conservatives actually trying to take matters into their own hands. And just watch. I believe that this will probably be a bigger thing. But remember in the 2020 election that they were they used all these underhanded tactics to try to get conservative the observers.
Yep.
To kick them out, to remove them, or find excuses to kick them out. Poll watchers. They find ways. I guarantee you that that they've learned, and that they're going to take every precaution in the book.
Well, okay.
Doesn't happen again.
Citizens will take every precaution in the book. The higher up Republicans probably won't.
No.
Because the higher up Republicans, especially those who want to be seen as bipartisan, say Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp was well, I thought the election was legitimate and free and fair, so that's why I encourage Raffensperger to verify the election results. And it's like, why are you doing this? It's not because, like, you actually believe it was free and fair? Really? Really?
Yeah. No, there's no courage in
And, like, he
that
basically
last
said, oh, yeah, like, there's no reason to have further investigation.
one.
I'm like, why? Why
Mm-hmm.
would you not have and encourage further investigation? Like, when they did the further investigation in Arizona, I think, what was it? They found 48,000 ballots that they couldn't properly they couldn't account for where they came from.
Yeah, actually, they found the same thing in Georgia. There was like a ton of like
There was a ton of
ballots.
stuff like that. Like they
Yeah,
found, I
ballots
think it was
they couldn't figure
4,000
out.
ballots in Georgia
Yeah, that were
that were
not counted.
that were doubles, and they had like photographs, and it's like this is from this bin and this is from this bin, and they have exactly the same person signing, and it's exactly the same person voting.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
okay,
So, yeah,
why isn't this national news? And it's like, well, they're trying to cover it up.
yeah. It's the problem. Problem is always is that the it's obvious that there was problems, but they don't want you to they're telling you don't believe your lying eyes. Believe
Yep.
what we tell you. That is the tactic,
Yeah.
which is
So
really unfortunate.
last week, the Secretary of State referred a report of voter intimidation to the State Attorney General's office and the United States Department of Justice. After a voter reported being approached and followed by a group of individuals while trying to drop off a ballot. We're deeply concerned about the safety of individuals who are exercising their constitutional right to vote, who are lawfully taking in early ballots to a drop box. Uninformed vigilantes outside Maricopa are not increasing election integrity. Really?
Yeah, it's difficult because okay, so here's the problem with what they're doing. Is it going to be effective? Because they technically don't have
They don't have any authority.
They don't have any authority or any jurisdiction.
Yeah.
If like let's say for example, let's say hypothetically that somebody does come up and they're planning to cheat. Okay, like they come up with these things. What are they going to do? All they can do is videotape them.
Yep.
Actually, you'd probably be more effective videotaping people because that would probably be more like, oh, I don't want to be caught on tape, than standing out there with a gun and all that. So
yeah.
This is an example of, I think, poorly thought out strategy. Because really, what are you going to do? You're not going to use those guns. You're clearly not going to any attempt to.
Yeah.
Is going to be
no. Like, it's a much wiser idea to have basically each ballot drop box.
Yeah.
There should be somebody wealthy enough to set up a fund for like the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
Just to say, okay, we are going to put a camera there, and it's going to be constantly rolling.
Yep.
And it's going to be there's going to be another camera which is monitoring the parking lot. And if one person drops off more than one ballot, then we're going to be monitoring those cars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just basically accountability.
Yeah. Accountability and
good.
trying to ensure that what happened in 2000 Mules, whether it happened as Dinesh said or not, can never happen again.
Yeah.
And if it does happen again, then they have more than receipts enough to say, all right, this is disputable to the highest degree. And if you, like, honestly, if they continue to doubt what's going on and they continue to say, oh, no, it's just right-wing conspiracy theories, none of this is actually happening, there's no fraud, it will only continue to divide the country, and then we'll have more instances like this. Senator Marco Rubio says supporter was brutally attacked while canvassing for him. He tweeted photos of a man wearing a Rubio for Senate t-shirt. He said the man was also wearing an Ron DeSantis hat. He suffered internal bleeding, a broken jaw, and will need facial reconstructive surgery. According to an arrest report, he said he was walking around a neighborhood near East 60th Street, handing out flyers when he came across a man who was allegedly blocking the sidewalk. The victim told police that Lopez confronted him, said he could not pass the sidewalk in front of his home. When the victim walked towards the street, he said, "You can't pass by here. This is my neighborhood." Victim told Lopez, "This is public property and I can be here if I want to." And then they began to argue. Report says another person came and kicked Lopez right side of his face, which is odd.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lopez began to punch the victim's face multiple times, causing severe swelling and his right eye to be completely shut. According to Rubio's team, there were 4 attackers who allegedly told the victim Republicans aren't allowed in this neighborhood. So, yeah. That's the kind of stuff will only become more common when you seek to further divide the country. You want to unite the country, not behind a political party. You want to unite the country behind what is true. If you have half the country that cannot, and it varies. It's like in 2016, you had half the country, quote unquote, saying the Russians interfered with the election, and then it was an illegitimate election. 2020, you had the other half, but for a lot more valid reasons than the Russians.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, like, we always hear about, like, oh, everyone's... Okay, so are we forgetting something very important? Remember what Biden did in his most famous speech ever?
Yep.
When in front of that, like, red background, calling half the country... like calling half the country basically terrorists, fascists, all this kind of stuff. People, like, I hate to say this, but there are so many people who will believe that, who feel empowered.
Well, it's exactly the same here in Canada.
Yeah, they're basically empowered and emboldened by very dangerous talk, to the point where they legitimately believe that these people are horrible, dangerous, like, And I mean, this is only scaled up. So the government, all of these officials, all of these politicians, all of these entertainment figures, they are all working together to create hatred for an identifiable group of people, and this is the result. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It's like if you meet somebody and their kid is super racist and super rude and super hateful, and they just yell and punch like people they don't like and all that, I'm like, yeah, that was the parents' fault. That was the parents' fault for letting that kid, or either letting that kid become that, or basically like turning that kid like that. However, we somehow like see this kind of stuff, and we think like, oh well, that's the individual's fault. It's like, no, there is a very large scale indoctrination, thing that's emboldening and telling people it is not only okay to hurt people that you don't like. We're going to defend you, and we're going to empower you to do that. This is why we're getting this kind of craziness. It's terrible.
Yep. And stories like this are only furthering the divide. Hillary Clinton claims right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.
Oh, she's encouraging election denial.
Oh yeah. Well, she always encouraged election denial. Yeah. Because with a face like this, how could you lose?
That would be like the ultimate scary Halloween.
Oh my goodness.
Right? That's a terrifying video.
Yeah, 2-time failed presidential candidate and Russian collusion conspiracy theorist Hillary Clinton has a new warning for Americans. Right-wing extremists are planning to steal the 2024 election. Wonky, wide-eyed Hillary made the assertion in a special video message to Indivisible's Crush the Coup. I know we're all focused on the midterm election, and they are incredibly important, but we have to look ahead because you know what our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election, and they're not making a secret of it.
You can probably go to the video. It's just below.
Oh, this is just going to be wondrous.
Yeah. Lovely.
Indivisibles. I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. And I know this group really understands what I'm about to say. I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly, state legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections. Just think, if that happens, the 2024 presidential election could be decided not by the popular vote or even by the anachronistic electoral college, but by state legislatures, many of them Republican controlled. But there's also good news in the face of this very real threat to democracy.
We can cheat our way out.
Indivisible has launched Crush the Coup to make sure we're ready to defend democracy in 2024. They've put together a list of critical races in 6 key states and how you can get involved.
Yeah.
This is like the most perfect example of projection.
Yep.
Like everything that so let's go through some of them. So what are some of the ways that the Democrats are literally trying to cheat in order to be able to get increase their chances?
Mail-in votes.
What?
Mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots, because you can there's so many ways you can cheat. I will say they're trying to create laws where you don't need any voter ID whatsoever. Why would they do that? Not because they want to make sure that everyone can vote. It's because they want to ensure that people who either are ineligible to vote, which is anyone from illegal immigrants, but also
criminals,
legal immigrants that have not yet become citizens, as well as criminals, as well as people that normally can't vote. Why? Because they know that
if they give them the right to vote, then they will be a voting bloc forever.
Actually, there was even a story I remember hearing about the 2016 election that Hillary got a ridiculous amount. They were speculating a ridiculous amount of illegal votes.
Mm-hmm.
It was a huge.
It was in the millions.
It was in the millions, and I'm like, oh, that
doesn't surprise me.
Well, it's almost funny because that popular vote lead right there. So they find ways. They in the 2020 election, one of the ways that they found to try to manipulate the outcomes is they use dirty tactics to disqualify third party candidates.
Yep.
Several third party candidates were disqualified in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and other places because they didn't want to split the vote between Joe Biden and others. And so they found dirty tactics like that. They used dirty tactics in Pennsylvania to try to break their own constitution to try to extend the amount of time that you could potentially vote. I mean, this is just projection to the greatest degree, right?
Yep.
Now, thankfully, there are some great people who are calling out this garbage. And did you ever see that episode, Stephen, of was it Family Guy where they showed all the view, but it's just a bunch of hens just clucking, and they just go nuts.
Yeah, it's basically The View.
Yeah.
Especially when Ted Cruz comes on, The View explodes.
They went nuts.
Ted Cruz calls out past Democrats on questioning election results. Cruz asks the host, so it's illegitimate when Republicans win, but not when Democrats win? Let's just watch.
Oh, good old Ted.
A lot of folks in the media that try to, anytime a Republican is in front of a TV camera, try to say the election was fair and square and legitimate. You know who y'all don't do that to? You don't do it to Hillary Clinton, who stood up and said Trump stole the election.
They didn't storm the Capitol. They didn't try to kill my former
Abrams, who said that the election was stolen. They sat here and said it was illegitimate, and you guys were fine with it. Okay, so
and it was.
Republicans win.
No, here's the thing. We may not like when Republicans win, but we don't go and we don't storm. We don't try to change what. We'll go
What about May 29th?
An entire year of Antifa riots where cities across this country were burning and police cars were being firebombed. Your position is the left doesn't engage in violence, really?
No, they wanted to noose our friend Mike Pence. How do we make sense of that?
You just accused us of doing something we didn't do. You said Hillary Clinton didn't say whatever she didn't say. I'm saying to you, listen.
And she said it's sitting here, and you were fine with her saying it was illegitimate for Republicans to win.
Oh my gosh. What a bunch of...
bunch of bozos.
Well, the funny thing is, remember when DeSantis was invited on The View, and he basically had
his speech, and he's like, yeah, you've called me Death Santis and Fascist Santis, and that I'm responsible for a whole bunch of deaths, but that Florida is doing the best, and like people trying to move into Florida is actually making the state more expensive because the demand to move here is so high. But yet you will never give me any credit for that. You just continually attack me as a monster. So how about no?
Like you should have gone.
How about no?
I was going to say the Dr. Evil, like, I got something to say about this. While I'm talking about this, can you pull up that I sent you a video on Messenger?
Oh
no, on Messenger, on Facebook Messenger, but you can look it up while I'm talking about this. So with Ted Cruz, the question is, why would he go on this show? Because, like, let's face it, The View is incredibly antagonistic. It's like going on the Young Turks. Like when we saw a video of Dennis Prager got invited on the Young Turks. And part of it was because they wanted to, like, so-called debunk the idea that, like, liberals will never have, like, conservatives on their shows and all that. But when you see him actually on that show, obviously they didn't let him talk. So, the reason why he went on is because he has to. The people who listen to The View will never be exposed to a conservative who will fact check them, and I think that is one reason why I really respect Ted Cruz, because he's actually there.
He confronts them and doesn't put up with their BS.
Doesn't put up with their BS. You can show that video. This is a video. This is exactly what I think of when I think of The View. It was so
Hey, Stewie, 3 o'clock. Time for The View. No, not again! Let me out of here! I can't watch another second!
Self-harm to get away from The View.
Yeah, it's so hard. This is what it feels like, though. Like the View is a perfect example of an echo chamber where nobody's ever held accountable, nobody's ever fact-checked. Everyone can say ridiculous things, and it's fine. But this is why they freak out when they have
an actual conservative who confronts them.
Yes, a conservative who doesn't back down. And Ted Cruz is very skilled in confronting people who are antagonistic and aggressive, and he does a great job of responding to The View hosts. So, get on Ted Cruz.
Yep.
By the way, even Ted Cruz is a seasoned veteran, but he is by far not the only show. Even regular people.
Especially when it comes to the January 6th stuff. Yeah. Regular people can easily debunk the ideas that are spewed by the left-wing legacy establishment media. Oh. So let's just watch this segment from MSNBC, and this reporter is just like, hey.
She's like,
how can people believe this?
Mastriano was at the insurrection, and he was photographed breaching one of the restricted areas. Is that okay?
Which area? Because I saw a video where Capitol officers were taking away barriers and unlocking doors for people. So,
they opened the gates.
So it shouldn't be disqualifying for an elected official if they participated in January 6th?
He didn't strike anybody. He didn't hurt anybody.
And the only one that died was a protester there, not a Capitol police
unarmed
officer.
Female veteran.
That's the only one that died.
That's the only one who died.
A police officer did die.
No. It was a stroke. That's not on site.
Because he shouldn't have been a police officer. It was one woman.
So what do you make, though, overall of January 6th? I mean, watching that footage, it was pretty disturbing. I mean, there were people throwing excrement at the walls, and it was it's the Capitol.
It looked a lot like Antifa's actions.
Yeah, it looked a lot, except on a much smaller scale. It looked the same as the Black Lives Matter riots.
That's what I saw, the similarities to be.
Minneapolis burns, Kenosha burns.
But so it's okay just because one side that you disagree with?
Notice how she keeps...
It was so good. Did you notice how she poisoned the well, Stephen?
Mm-hmm.
In that one question she asked, so what did you think of the footage on January 6th?
It was pretty shocking, wasn't it?
It was shocking. People were throwing feces at the walls. Weren't you shocked? It's like that's
never happened. But
journalism, by the way, you don't ask a question.
Yeah.
By basically
you say it's like react to this insane statement as if it's fact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like people talking about the freedom rallies. It's just like, how do you feel about everybody at the freedom rally being a Nazi. And it's like, well, there was one person who had a Nazi flag and he was immediately kicked out and chased out of the Freedom Convoy. Well, how do you feel about everybody being a white supremacist? What? No.
It's like the Freedom Convoy people were pretty horrible, weren't they? Like they were yelling and accusing people and threatening rape, weren't they? And it was like, you're already like tainting the entire thing. You're trying to basically manipulate people into like, be like, oh, you can only answer in the negative. That's basically what she's doing. So, these people showed, and I love how it was so many. So many of the people were like they were like bouncing off each other. They're like, like, well, it's nothing like the Antifa, or like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, the Black Lives Matter one. Like Kenosha was burning, Waukesha was burning, and she's seeing this whole thing like just run away from her. And I'm like, oh, thank God these Trump supporters. Thank goodness for them. And it's funny because they look like just run of the mill like people, like nothing special, but man, are they well versed. And this. And the lady who was kind of like interviewing them was clearly either she had never heard these corrections like herself, or she was just basically told like, make sure you tell this lie, because she said like, well, officer did die, and as soon as they fact checked her and stuff like,
then she immediately pivots.
Yeah, because she was like, okay, I can't agree with that, so I have to like just pretend it didn't happen. It's like, good old the good old like media, but it shows you that one side, particularly the conservative side, in for the most part, like not there's obviously exceptions. There's well educated and probably some people who have kept up with things on the left as well. But for the on the whole, Trump supporters, conservatives, tend to be far more well informed and well researched than anybody on the left. That's actually like a feature, not a bug, of the left wing. So,
and because the Republican voters are more well informed, they've happened to convince a few people, which is why there will likely be a floodgate red tsunami.
It's back.
Republicans could win another 12 to 25 seats in the House of Representatives as a massive sweep this November, a new analysis from Cook Political Report predicted. Predictions present an even more optimistic situation for Republicans than Cook's last analysis, which predicted 10 to 20 seat gains for the GOP. Seats with Democratic incumbents were moved from likely D to toss-up in 4 races, and 2 races with Democratic incumbents were moved from toss-up to likely R in this week's analysis. Enthusiasm is on our side, as evidenced by historic turnout from Republicans in primaries and early voting. A GOP spokesman told the Daily Caller, Americans are rejecting Democrats' failures from high places and out-of-control crime to their woke agenda. Democrats are hemorrhaging support against voters amongst every state, district, and demographic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, America.
Now, a couple of things for people to note here. While this is very encouraging, because what happened over the summer in the early part of this year, the spring, people were predicting a red wave. They're like, oh, okay, like it was so obvious that there was going to swing of support for Republicans that many Democratic candidates just basically said like, yeah, I'm not going to run for re-election, or they announced that they're done after this session. So it was really obvious. By the summer, a lot of those leads had really kind of shrunk to the point where people were saying like, oh, maybe wave at all. And then again, heading into the fall, we've now had a resurgence. Now, the one thing you have to be very careful of, two things to keep in mind. One is that this polling of like these grand leads and these grand advantages that the Republicans are getting, they are coming after a lot of people have already voted, because early voting in some states has started like all the way back in September. And even like October. A good example of that is the Senate race in Pennsylvania. They're having a debate
tonight, which there will be memes galore from this debate. I watched 5 minutes of it. Oh my, John Fetterman is totally hopeless.
It's really sad to see. Yeah.
Oh, like having him, like watching him answer questions, like, okay, like how do you feel about border security and like illegal border crossings? And he's like, I believe that the border and like having a secure border is close to being compassionate, I think. And like we have to care about women's health. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
John Fetterman. That wasn't the question.
No, it's.
I'm John Fetterwoman.
Was that a joke? Or was that for real?
He said that. Not in the debate, but not in the debate.
I know he said that, but I wasn't sure if that was meant to be a joke or if that actually was legitimately.
No, he wanted to appeal to like women's rights and trans activists, and so he's just like, "I'm John Fetterwoman."
Yeah,
it's like,
makes sense.
You are a woke nincompoop.
Okay. Well, okay. So the first thing that we said is that obviously a lot of early voting has already been done, so maybe a lot of these polls might not be reflective of that. But the second thing that you have to keep in mind is that this is why we don't change subject when we're like in the middle, because I had 2 points that I want to make. One is that the early voting. Two is that polling in general has been very, very screwed up these last couple of years. 2016 was remarkably terrible. 2020 was just as terrible. The polls were skewed to huge amounts. So one question that a lot of people are asking is, we've had some really bad polling years these last couple of years. How bad is this polling going to be? And we all know that polling tends to favor Democrats. So not only could the margins be even greater, but they could also be like completely wrong as well. So we're not sure. Like there's a lot of unknowns that are coming up with this thing. So now heading into like the actual like midterms, Stephen and I obviously we're going to do like not an abortion, a midterms live stream and talk about like in real time and all that. But as we prepare for that, Stephen, why don't we go into like some of the most some of the races that we're going to keep an eye on, just to kind of give you a little bit of a look. So obviously the first one is the Senate races. So which ones do you think are the most interesting, like to follow? What do you think? So obviously you talked about the Pennsylvania one.
Pennsylvania number one. John Fetterman, Dr. Oz. I wish that we could have gone with the alternative, but Trump got us there. Like sometime, like when it comes to Trump, if you praise Trump's name, he will give you the benefit of the doubt.
He will.
And Dr. Oz was a full-on Democrat liberal.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ran as a Republican and claimed that he changed his views. I don't think he did.
No, that's unlikely.
So,
do you remember that there was another lady who was also the nomination in Pennsylvania? And
she joined Timcast IRL, and she was great.
She was amazing. She would have been a great candidate, but I don't know. Mesman Oz just had way more support.
Well, they were about even, and then like
something
Trump
happened.
Started campaigning for Oz, and then a lot of votes went his way.
I think she just like she was at a huge disadvantage.
So according to this, it says it's leaning. This is what as of September 26th.
Yeah.
So I think right now this has changed to a toss-up. And
no, actually, Mesman Oz has a lead.
Oh, okay. Well, and I think after tonight,
it's pretty much going to be a guarantee.
It'll be pretty much saying leans Republican because watching Okay, hold on. I'm gonna scroll through. I'm gonna find like a couple seconds of this.
Of what?
I'm gonna find like a short segment.
Okay, well, while you're looking, let me talk about some of the other races. So, well, you're going to be looking, so I'll just mention them. So, one race that I'm looking at is Arizona. Now, obviously, the gubernatorial race with Carrie Lake, it looks like a deadlock for Carrie Lake that she's going to take Arizona. But one thing that I found interesting is that in Arizona, the senator there, Mark Kelly, is getting a huge amount of like uptick in support because of Carrie Lake. And so before, like that seat looked like it was pretty much guaranteed for the Democratic candidate. But Blake Masters, who's the Republican candidate, now looks like he definitely making some ground. So I'm looking possibly for Arizona to flip that seat. In Georgia, you have Raphael Warnock, who's the incumbent. Basically got in after the all the fiasco that happened with the questioning of the election.
Mm-hmm.
But Herschel Walker looks like he might actually be a potential, to completely overturn that. That's going to be that's looking really, really good.
So yeah, it was a toss-up. It's moving more towards the Republicans.
Yep. Is there another race that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
Like, I'm keeping an eye on Marco Rubio just because of the incident that happened this week.
Right.
And because I generally like Marco Rubio, I find he stands for the right stuff.
It seems like unlikely, though. Like Florida...
really unlikely that he's going to lose.
However, the one I am wondering about, and I'm actually kind of keeping an eye on, is Ohio. Because Ohio...
Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance?
Yeah, because Tim Ryan... J.D. Vance is right now is Republican, right?
Yeah. And I think it's moved further Republican.
Yes. But Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance are kind of going at it right now in Ohio. And I don't know who specifically has the advantage, but I mean that would be a really bad state to lose a seat to a Democrat.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm kind of Ohio and Florida. Florida seems like
more secure.
Yeah, but Ohio, I don't know. It could potentially go the other way. So we'll see.
This is the opening statement of John Fetterman. I saw after this, but what I saw was just like, whoa.
Good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And
nor should he. You can barely talk.
This debate, mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down.
See, that one doesn't really show it very well.
It doesn't show it super well, but you could definitely tell that there's moments where he's like, there was actually something where he's like, I'm supposed to talk about, because he was actually allowed an earpiece in this debate.
Yeah, he has to.
And so, like, it's fairly obvious that people are telling him what to say.
Yeah.
And that's what he needs.
Well, he has to, because remember, like, that MSN... Is it MSN? Report?
Oh, it was terrible, that MSNBC.
Basically said, like, he needed some kind of... to be able to, like, show him the questions as soon as that could actually translate. So, I think one of the best comments I've heard about, like, John Fetterman was from, like, somebody on Timcast, that they said that the Democrats in another place have, like, actually elected a dead person. That is how little integrity Democratic voters have. They will literally elect a rock if it's Democratic, if it's got a Democrat symbol on it, over a Republican. That's how completely, stuck there. And so, yeah, like, I'm not surprised at all that there is a lot of people who are Democrats who would be like, I would prefer to have a person who is, like, potentially mentally incapable of doing the job than to have a Republican. That's how like, singularly minded they are. So we'll see what happens there. Stephen, take us into the gubernatorial races. These are actually really interesting.
All right. Midterm elections, 10 most competitive governor's races. So, midterm election, I'm not going to cover about when it is because you should know.
Yeah.
All right. So, Arizona, Katie Haas versus Carrie Lake.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff happening there. What
Yep.
do you think about that one?
Carrie Lake sounds absolutely great.
She's fantastic. She could actually be a presidential candidate
In a few
someday.
years, yep.
In a few years, she would be
So
fantastic.
DeSantis 2024, DeSantis 2028,
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Lake 2032. Good work. Good work.
Okay.
Her running mate would be Candace Owens.
Probably. but Carrie Lake is she's people have been saying that she is the model for how to effectively win and run races in the conservative party.
Oh, you could definitely tell this was written by a lefty.
Of course.
She supports abandoned abortion without any exceptions for rape and incest. Incense. They spelled that wrong. She also wants cameras in each school to spy on the children. That's not the point. It's to spy on the teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's a supporter of anti-Semitic and racist politicians.
Just let it go, Stephen. This is clearly a leftist site, so just let it go.
Salty.
Yeah, super salty here, Stephen. Now, the thing with Carrie Lake is that very effective. She's not scared or shy of talking to reporters, and she's very good at it. Which one?
She was fantastic when she talked with CNN. What was her response? Where would she air the interview? CNN Plus. She's like, is that still a thing? It's not. Maybe you should stop lying and deceiving the public. And I'm like,
well done.
Oh, you just trounced them so hard. Anyways, moving on to the next.
No. I want to.
No, you want to talk about Carrie Lake more?
No. I want to talk about specific ones. Go to the Oregon one because I was hearing about the Oregon race, and that one's going.
Apparently, there is a chance that the Republicans might actually take Oregon, which would be hilarious.
Yes. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Oregon has never. Okay, the last time Oregon had a Republican senator, I think it was 20 years ago. The last time they had a Republican governor was 40 years ago. So if Oregon ends up electing a Republican governor, that would be a massive, massive, earth-shattering change in a state that has been like the blueprint.
You can tell which one's the Republican.
Yeah, the one that looks normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a good chance that the Republican might actually take over. And this is like Oregon is actually seeing massive amounts of people like fleeing the state, going to places like Idaho. Actually,
Idaho, and then of course Texas and Florida.
Yeah, but there's also even been attempts by people to try to defect from Oregon State and join Idaho to actually make Idaho a bigger state and all that. This is how much the left has destroyed Oregon to the point where people are literally trying to flee and they're trying to cut off a chunk of Oregon. So I'm looking at that race. That's going to be a race, and I'm hoping that it'll yield some good things.
Mm-hmm.
Any other ones that you want? I want to cover the Michigan. I don't know if you covered that one.
Oh, the Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh my gosh, that would be
Tudor Dixon versus Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay, so Gretchen Whitmer is the face of
great evil.
Yeah, she's basically no different than Andrew Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Cuomo
did the same thing.
He's responsible for the death of tens of thousands of elderly people because of incredibly irresponsible policies. Gretchen Whitmer is equally to blame for an enormous amount of people in Michigan. So, my concern is that Michigan might be like California. Remember how California had that recall election and Gavin Newsom still won? I was like, you guys are dumb. You're dumb. You reelected the total psychopath, but that was California. Michigan's a little bit more conservative, so there's a chance. And I would love to see nothing. I would love nothing to see Gretchen Whitmer finally leave that state.
Mm-hmm.
She has been a disaster.
And then she would actually get raided by the FBI.
Yes.
Not the FBI pretending to be.
Yeah. Another one that might be interesting is Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro versus Doug Mastriano.
Yeah.
Doug Mastriano was actually on the Timcast IRL podcast, which was amazing. He's a smart guy. He's a
he is.
military veteran, and he is incredibly intelligent. He has some great policies to put in there. It's looking like there might be a good chance that he might take him out.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that'll be the case. So let's keep hoping.
Yep.
The other one that might be worth looking into, obviously the Florida one is that's Ron DeSantis. It's over.
Yep. Well,
Especially
I loved how DeSantis called Charlie Crist a tired old donkey. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much true.
Well done.
Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams is what I'm going to watch.
That seems well.
I'm fairly I'm just because I want Stacey Abrams to finally openly admit that she's lost.
Yeah, no,
which she will not do. But I want to see her lose because she still thinks she's the president of Earth from Star Trek.
She probably does.
Yep.
However, this is from November 20th. Oh, sorry. Do you know which race is not on here that actually just became a big deal like recently? Which gubernatorial race just came up? Al, you don't know. New York. New York. The actual
they're gonna overthrow Hochul?
Yeah, Hochul is actually at risk right now. I was hearing about this and I was like,
destroy.
What? Yeah, she's actually there's a possibility that Hochul and the Democratic governor of New York might actually lose her spot. I was like, that would be amazing because New York is in a death spiral. And nothing would make me happier than to see New York choose a Republican to hopefully right the ship. That is that state is a gigantic Titanic, and that would be awesome if Hochul lost. So keep those all in mind because those are going to be some races to watch. So yeah, anything else to mention, Stephen?
No, I think that's pretty much all the races that we're really going to be focusing on when we do our special in 2.5 weeks.
November 8th.
Yes.
Remember the 8th of November.
No, it's actually 2 weeks from today because it's on a Tuesday. It'll be a Tuesday live stream.
That's right.
We'll have 3 live streams in a row.
It's going to be a big day.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Tune in. And then make sure and make gifts for Red Tsunami. And then fill it with laugh emojis.
Gotta love it.
Yep, gotta love it. All right,
man. Well, let's do a hard shift and move into.
From red tsunamis to tsunamis of vaccine complications.
Vaccine tsunamis.
Yep. So Moderna CEO admits COVID is like seasonal flu. Only vulnerable need jabs. Younger people are going to have to decide for themselves what they want to do. So in a rare moment, the CEO Stefan Bancel admitted that COVID is akin to a seasonal flu and that only older people and those who have compromised immune systems need to get vaccinated. Speaking at a finance conference Monday, Bancel noted, I think it's going to be like the flu. If you're a 25-year-old, you need an annual boost. You need an annual booster every year. If you're healthy, you might want to. But I think it's going to be similar to the flu, where it's going to be people at high risk, people above 50, people with comorbidities, people with cancer and other conditions, people with transplants.
Probably play the video.
There's a video? Okay, there's a video.
Yeah, of course there's a video.
Is the COVID vaccine going to become that? Is it going to be an annual COVID booster for a very long time to come, or maybe for the rest of our lives? And how do you merge that with the fact that there's already low uptake of this new variant booster?
So I think it's interesting. The uptake is actually stronger than seasonal flu from the data I've seen recently. So we'll have to see toward the end of the season, what does it look like? It's the first time we're going to be more in an endemic setting than a pandemic setting. So I think we'll be smarter in a month or two. But the current data show that it's a better uptake than seasonal flu shot. And I think it's going to be like the flu, which is, again, if you're 25-year-old, do you need an annual booster every year if you're healthy? You might want it to protect other people. You might want it because you don't want to get sick and miss work or miss vacation or so on. But I think it's going to be very similar to flu, where the key is going to be people at high risk, people above 50 years of age, people with comorbidity, people with cancer and other conditions, transplant. and that's really important to think about. And if you look at it around the world, that is 1.5 billion people. So it's a lot of people that are going to need an annual booster, and people that are younger going to have to decide for themselves what they want to do. I mean, the example I always use is myself. I've been taking a flu shot for.
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah, he goes on, but that's a big admission.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's one that he's going to make, but it's definitely not one that Bourla is going to make.
Bourla?
Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I hear correctly that Albert Bourla is not actually a doctor? He's a vet, or was that somebody else?
Okay, hold on. I'm looking this up.
Hearing that somewhere. Bourla.
Okay, this doesn't work if both of us search this up.
Okay, sorry. So
he's a vet.
I remember hearing that. He's like a veterinarian. And I'm like, how are you the head of a drug company that makes drugs for humans? Like, how does that work?
Because it's all experimentation for his dog.
It's wonderful. I think that the biggest thing about this, and I remember, if you guys haven't heard, the CDC in a unanimous decision, which basically shows there is nobody with any integrity on that CDC board. Nobody. They're all a bunch of completely bought off hacks. But the important thing is they, in a unanimous decision, they all said, okay, we're going to add the COVID booster shot to all of the regular vaccinations that we recommend to children. Now, they could basically say, well, it's not mandatory. Like people have pointed out, it's like, if you're a school, let's say you're a school board in Waterloo, Ontario, and you basically decide we're going to force everyone to get the COVID booster. I'm like, well, wait, how can you do that? Like, what justification? Well, the CDC said so. So that's our justification. That's all we need. It's like, well, how did the CDC come to that? Well, not because of science. I can give you that. It's because a whole bunch of people, they all just took a random decision. Like, I feel like it's fine, but they don't have to show their work. This is the way science works nowadays. You don't have to actually present the science. You just be like a bunch of experts that all say like, oh, I agree. And it suddenly becomes like, the science, so to speak. It's really, really quite terrible. So the thing is, as Stephen had mentioned to me before the show, a lot of people have assumed that these vaccines are safe and they're super effective, but a lot of the data is not bearing that out. And one great data that came out recently was from Australia. So I don't know if you can pull that story up there, Stephen, from Rebel News. So this from Rebel News: heart disease is Australia's leading cause of death in 2021. This reminds me very much of what happened here in Alberta. Where in Alberta, remember what was that leading cause of death?
Oh, the sudden. No, it was okay. It wasn't SADS. It was unknown cause.
Yeah, unknown cause
was the leading cause of death in 2021, and it's like
I was like, yeah, that was what sucks. But Australia, the heart disease was their leading cause of death in that year. Now they say COVID-19 deaths ranked 34th on stats from ABS. Yeah, give me a break. So I don't know if you want to take this one, Stephen.
Yeah,
or you want me to?
So, COVID-19 was the 34th. By comparison, 1,500 Australians died from various conditions were definitely caused by excessive drinking. People who died from COVID had a higher tendency to have pre-existing chronic cardiac conditions. And heart disease was the leading cause of death in 2021, with dementia, including Alzheimer's, stroke, lung cancer, and chronic lower respiratory diseases, making up the top 5. Heart disease was the leading cause of male deaths, while dementia was the leading cause amongst female deaths.
You know what exacerbates dementia?
What exacerbates heart disease?
One thing that definitely exacerbates dementia is lockdowns.
Yep.
Has a humongously negative.
You know something that definitely exacerbates heart disease?
Oh, what's that, Stephen?
Myocarditis.
Or experimental gene therapies, possibly.
Oh no!
Oh no! We said the thing.
We said the thing. Hi, YouTubes. Because
The
it's
thing
definitely safe and effective.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Now,
no, I'm Katy Perry and I can't move my arm because I took this clutch shot.
Yeah, like this. It's safe and effective. I can't open it again.
I can't move my face.
Hold on, I got this. Okay, I'm good. I touched the button.
Mm-hmm.
Now the interesting thing is, like, we've stats from like England, from like Israel, from like so many places. Like the amount of deaths in most of these countries, like actually went up in 2021 rather than down. You would have thought it went down with COVID, like with the vaccine coming in,
Saving everyone and being the grands. Nope. COVID deaths went up.
Yeah, do you remember that study, like the one that we presented on the show, Stephen? The one where like it showed the correlation of like countries, like in the percentage of how much deaths went up after the introduction of vaccine. Do you remember that?
It
was a while ago.
So long ago.
But some of them were just
some of them were like hundreds of percentages.
No, like some of them were like in thousands of percentages.
Yeah.
Like it was insane, like 24,000% increases in some countries, and some were even worse. So it was showing the negative correlation, like the negative efficacy, that like you would think would be opposite, but like no, it showed a pattern.
That's what happens when you move with the speed of science. Because there is no speed of science; it's the speed of profit.
Yeah. So like I'm glad that the CEO of Moderna is at least walking back like the intensity, because people are still trying to fearmonger about COVID. But at least I'm actually glad, Stephen, because remember at the beginning of this year we made our predictions about like what the year will be like and all that. We were pretty much almost guaranteed expecting we're gonna have yet another lockdown, another shutdown. At this point, I'm thinking that's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
that's kind of.
I think that there will be encouragement from the federal government to lock down, and I think our new premier will go tell them to pound sand, because all hail Danielle.
Go kick rocks.
Yep, kick rocks.
But it seems unlikely that we're going to get that again. And I think something like the CEO of Moderna saying that only reinforces that we're probably not going to go back, at least not anytime soon. So. Good for him. I'm glad that we're getting a little bit more reasonable kind of comments. But what we're not getting is reasonable comments from our prime minister, Justin Fidel Castro.
The true dictator.
The true dictator. Apparently, Fidel Castro's like son was like he sent a note basically saying that his dad is super proud of Justin. And I was like,
oh boy.
I know. I remember hearing that. I was like, that's Fidel Castro.
Trudeau announces ban on handgun sales transfers, saying fewer handguns means safer communities. Handgun freeze is the most aggressive Canadian gun control measure in a generation.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know if that's something to brag about. I mean, I'm sure.
It's not.
I'm sure Hitler could make that same claim. When he banned the guns, he's like, this is the most significant, gun control measure in the generation. I'm like.
And then what immediately followed? The gun control measure? Cristo
bad. Well, and in every country that's done this, there's been some horrible.
In Venezuela, they banned guns. Now they eat rats.
Yeah. In Australia, they banned guns, and they were sent to like COVID camps.
Concentration camps. Oh, wait, they're internment facilities.
Oh, let's rename those terrible things.
Yep. So the handgun freeze, which went into effect Friday, outlaws sales, purchases, and other transfers of handguns between individuals. Additionally, no foreign handguns may be brought into the country from abroad. Quote, Canadians have a right to feel safe in their homes, in their schools, and in their places of worship. I feel less safe with a handgun ban. Trudeau said in a statement on the freeze, with handgun violence increasing across Canada, it is our duty to take urgent action to remove these deadly weapons from our communities. Today, we're keeping more guns out of our communities and keeping our kids safe.
What a garbage talking point, hey?
Oh, I had several people the weekend try and tell me this talking point.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yes, like fewer guns keep people safe. And I'm like,
no.
You realize? Idiot. They're like, Canada has fewer school shootings. I'm like, Canada invented school shootings. You ever remember École Polytechnique? And they're like, well, we have fewer. I'm like, yes, we have fewer people.
Yeah.
I'm like, but we have no way to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, there was nobody who stopped. Like, the cops didn't go in Uvalde. I'm like, no, it was an off-duty officer who went in because he was a good guy with a gun.
Yeah. That was not Uvalde was not evidence that guns are not helpful or that they don't stop school shootings. Uvalde was evidence of
that
police
you shouldn't
misconduct.
you should not rely on the cops to
It-
save you and your family from somebody else armed with a gun. You should have a gun so that you can defend yourself when somebody evil comes by.
I think that was also the case in the one in Florida, that like the school resource officer, like the one who had actually the gun and all that, he refused to go in.
Yep,
he just wouldn't. And I'm like, that
Parkland.
doesn't show. Yeah, Parkland. That doesn't show that guns don't work. It shows that you need people who are brave enough to use them.
Yeah,
to actually use them.
That person left the conversation when I brought up Sutherland Springs.
Yeah, of course. Now, the thing was, for those who don't know, Sutherland Springs hero, who basically shot and, like, I think he killed an attempted like mass murderer using his own gun, which was brilliant, so good. So here's a couple things that Canadians have the right to feel safe. This whenever a tyrant or an authoritarian abuser wants to do something evil, he will always come up with some kind of a legitimate reason to do it. And in the case of guns, they'll always say it's about safety. Safety is the number one talking point by demagogues who want to take away something that you have a right to. And they say, like, oh, it's for your own safety. It's for your own good. That was COVID, like, the entire time. It's like, oh, it's for your own good, for your own safety. Give me a break. They're not going to make communities here, because why is there an increase in handgun violence? Steven?
Why is there an increase in handgun violence in Canada?
In Canada, what's driving that increase?
Because we have.
Oh, you don't know?
Well, there's a plethora of reasons.
Well, like the most prominent reason why handgun violence is increasing is because of gang violence.
Mm-hmm.
Because gang violence is becoming more and more dangerous and more prominent in, like, Canadian cities. Now, why is this? Why is this important? Because criminals who are in gangs don't care about
gun control.
So guess what? You take away the guns from law-abiding citizens, and the only people left with the guns are the criminals.
Yep.
It's like you're just basically, it's a recipe for making an entire, like, population less safe.
That same conversation, I was just like, well, the areas with the strictest gun control measures also have very high crime, like New York and Chicago, and they're like, they pointed to this Washington Post article. It's like 80% of the guns are from out of state, and I'm like, yes, that points to the fact that criminals won't follow the law.
How about that?
Like, that doesn't point to the fact that less guns equals fewer crimes. It's just that, oh, look, you don't have anything to protect yourself. You're easy pickings.
Oh yeah, and guess what? The border has a horrible time trying to stop, like, gun smuggling. The Canadian American border.
Mm-hmm.
Go figures, like, super porous. So
yep,
like the only
and
people
the American border under Biden.
Yeah, who's
not for gun smuggling.
Yeah, who's really celebrating this gun ban, this handgun ban?
Gangs.
Yeah, actually, like, the people who are selling guns on the black market. Because hey, now they can jack up the prices.
Oh yeah,
like they love Trudeau's gun ban.
Oh, my coworker's just like, I've been buying up guns like crazy, and I'm like, I don't blame you. Anyways, but it's not just that Trudeau wants you to be unarmed. He definitely doesn't want you to defend yourself with the gun. So this is a video that he posted that was from earlier this year. I believe it was from earlier this year.
Yeah, it was.
And we have a culture where the difference is guns can be used for hunting or for sport shooting in Canada, and there's lots of gun owners, and they're mostly law-respecting and law-abiding. But you can't use a gun for self-protection in Canada. That's not a right that you have in the Constitution or anywhere else. If you try and buy a gun and say it's for self-protection, no, you don't get that. You get it for hunting. You can get it for sport shooting. You take it to the range, no problem, as long as you go through our rigorous background checks. But there's a difference around the culture, and one of the things that we're seeing.
What a freaking hypocrite! Yep. You know what Trudeau has? Every freaking place he
15
goes.
armed guards.
And what do they have? They have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they have guns? Because they
To
plan
protect
to use
him.
them as a way of protecting him from potential threats. So what? And this is the same with American politicians and Canadian politicians and everywhere else. They basically say you don't have the right to defend yourself, but the only right you have to be protected. Remember how he said, "Oh, Canadians have a right to a safe community and safe cities and safe whatever." Well, the only way that you can, like, what happens if somebody comes in and threatens you? What is their solution? Call the cops.
Yep, call the cops and hide.
And the cops, like, good luck if they show up in time to prevent the threat.
Well, and seeing as how they're Canadian.
Yeah,
like
they're extra slow.
Oh yeah, if they're extra slow, and of course they're like, well, we're gonna try and coax them out. Like I was driving by this house.
Mm-hmm.
We forgot that Costco closes early on Sundays, so we were like, hey, let's go and get like hot dogs with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, closed. But on the way, we passed by this house. This house had probably 12 cop cars around it. And there was a guy with a loudspeaker saying, "You are under arrest. Please come outside." And I'm like, you have a SWAT vehicle. Just raid it. And then by the time we drove back, and it was like 10 minutes each way, so it probably took us 15, 20 minutes. Well, probably actually took us about 25, 30 minutes before we came back, and they were still standing outside the house.
Yeah. So
I'm like, just raid it. They're just disposing of evidence, you nincompoops.
Good old cops.
Oh, I know. Canadian cops are either, if it comes to people who are violating COVID mandates, which is another reason why Danielle Smith is amazing, and that she's contemplating dropping all COVID charges.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
But like Canada cops,
yeah,
when it comes to actually pursuing criminals, are absolutely useless.
Well, I mean, Lauren Southern, she had a really good little take on this. She was saying that in the past, she always used to trust cops instinctively.
Oh yeah,
like for the most part, cops were generally trustworthy in Canada. But she's saying like now, now whenever she sees a cop either driving nearby her or anything like that, she's like, and the reason is because she knows that the cops will they're not going after either drug dealers or criminals or whatever, like because they don't want to have a dangerous interaction, and they know that you arrest them, they go back on the street the next day, so they're not even bothering. What they want is they're going for law-abiding citizens, people who actually obey them and if they follow, who are not dangerous, and they're giving them tickets for dumb things. Why? Because A, they need to get the finances for their department, but B, because it's much easier to go after the people who are like the law-abiding citizens. It's just like, this is stupid. Like the very thing that we want police to do, which is to help police crime, is not happening, and instead they're turning all their energy on the good guys, which are like the law-abiding citizens, and giving them really stupid tickets. So it's becoming a real problem in Canada when it comes to police officers. I remember hearing like the times for if somebody breaks into my house here in my house right now. I've heard like response times for cops could be like, I don't know, 15 minutes. If you are outside of the city in the area, that's even longer. By the time they show up, you're already dead. Whoever comes in, like you've already been like hit hard and all that. So the only way you can, I guess, defend yourself in Canada is you have to spend enormous amounts of money to get an armed security guard, and good luck if nobody can afford that. Only our very elite prime minister can afford that kind of stuff. And the sad thing in Canada, you're not even allowed to carry pepper spray or a taser or any other kind of thing that would give you a fighting chance against a deadly adversary. No. It's basically like the criminals. They're
open
good.
Season.
It's open season, really. It's a really sad thing. I think in Canada, I've heard say that they will actually they actually carry bear spray with them, like the bear spray they use in out in nature, because when push comes to shove, and they're facing either a life or death situation, or they're facing a rape or no rape situation, they'd rather take their chances and having to face some kind of legal repercussion
Mm-hmm.
than just be totally helpless. That's literally what people are left. The only situation that's what we're left here with here. You are not allowed to defend yourself in Canada. You're basically at the complete and total mercy of criminals. Canada is an absolute joke when it comes to self-defense. You're basically your only option is well, I hope he doesn't kill me. That's your only option. So it's sad. It's really sad. It's a real joke in Canada. And I think it's only going to get worse unless we get rid of this insane lunatic that we have in our government right now.
Yeah. All right.
Anyways,
and then, of course, briefly, we're going to talk about continuing on to the trucker convoy.
The Emergencies Act Commission.
The commission, yes.
Yeah.
So, Emergencies Act not required. OPP officer, day 7 recap. So, officers did not need the Emergencies Act. Chief Superintendent Carson Party, who is one of the most senior law enforcement officers involved in the effort, told commission lawyers that the Emergencies Act invocation wasn't required to tow vehicles and that existing police strategies in place prior to invoking the act would have been sufficient to clear the protests within the same time period. Commission lawyer Frank Au asked Party, in your view, was there a police solution to the demonstration? There was a solution, and we reached that solution. Party said, we had some help with the Emergencies Act, but in my humble opinion, we would have reached the same conclusion with the plan that we had without the act.
Which cuts directly into the narrative that they needed the act. So two major arguments. One, we need the act to be able to get the tow trucks, and two, we need the act to be able to get the police the ability to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and we're starting to get the idea that no, that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm. Absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
The whole hearing so far about the Emergencies Act, about the trucker convoy, has been very skewed.
Yeah.
It's been very one-sided, very directionally focused on attacking Pierre Poilievre, which is why the hashtag Pierre Poilievre must resign is trending on Twitter, because, of course, glorified morons who worship Justin Trudeau love to push that narrative. It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to paint the trucker convoy as the same thing as January 6th, which is absolutely nonsensical.
Wasn't even close to the same.
Wasn't even close. And of course, January 6th is overblown and aggrandized by the left anyway. The best video on that is a Freedom Tunes sketch trying to find anyone who gives an F about January 6th because nobody does anymore.
You know what I care about, Stephen? I care about 529.
529.
That was the real insurrection right there.
Yep. Hashtag day that the country nearly collapsed.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, 529 is the day that basically left wing
tried to burn down the White House when they could not get through the gates, or when
tried to storm the White House.
They tried to storm the White House, which with the intent of burning it down. They were stopped at the gate because they were armed security and cops on the other side, and so they went over beside the gate and into the park nearby and burned down the nearby church.
They tried. They attempted to burn down the church. They basically
did.
threw. They also threw. Did they? I thought
they did.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Oh, there was very little left of the church.
Okay.
Like when Trump did his photo op of him in the Bible, it was like the building was fairly burned out inside. It was like it was a brick building.
Yeah, I thought.
But the interior was really badly damaged.
Okay, so basically they did property damage. It was such a serious situation that they had to take.
They had to evacuate Trump to the bunker.
Into a bunker, and people actually mocked Trump for
Oh yeah, they called him a coward.
Yeah, the people who were involved, they threw projectiles. They tore down barriers. They engaged in actual violence with the cops, and they threw actual incendiaries. This is how they burned the church. This is an actual dangerous, violent insurrection. Whereas what happened on January 6th was good luck calling that an actual It was rowdy people, getting, I don't know, like the worst that happened was there were some interactions and like some violent interactions with police in some areas, which I don't agree with. I agree, but that was just a lot of people, a situation that got out of hand. I'm like that is nowhere near as bad as anything that happened from BLM protests on the Summer of Love. Like not even close. So with this commission, like the Trucker Commission, um, some of the things that we're finding are really interesting because we're finding out, like like Jim the mayor of Ottawa, he basically admitted that the negotiations were working, and they completely canceled them, like halfway through. So does it seem like the trucker leadership was actually willing to cooperate? It's like, yeah, I guess. Like, okay, so you think negotiations might have actually been helpful? It's like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, whatever. Um, there's been some like really interesting insights that have come out. So there's just too many to cover though. But this one was interestingly enough one of the ones that I felt was really important because in order to be able to decide whether or not the Emergencies Act was justified, they had to meet certain criteria, and one of those criteria is that could could the government have dealt with this with existing laws, and this is probably one of the most one of the most damaging testimonies because here's a high-ranking police officer saying, "Oh no, we could have dealt with this without the Emergency Act." So at this point, I actually it looks unlikely. It
Mm-hmm.
seems unlikely that they're going to be able to justify this thing.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
There was no justification to begin with.
No.
But even if it's found out that even if like they deem it in the hearing unjustified, there will be no consequences.
No.
And there's already some like vague threats that they're going to potentially try and charge any conservative MP or any MP that was involved with what they threatened to say seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, nonsensical and retarded.
Yeah. Yeah, this commission is a show trial.
It's a show trial. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's every time people are like, oh, like they're showing like some terrible things about the Freedom Convoy. Like, don't you think that this is serious? And I'm like, okay, establishment question. Let's fire into a baseline. Is the legacy media in Canada biased? And their answer was, is Canada proud and Rebel News and True North? And are they biased? And I'm like, yes, they're biased to counter the biases of the legacy media.
And they don't operate in the same way. They're actually honest and
well, and they don't get government funding, which I'm like makes them more trustworthy.
And they have journalistic integrity, which none of the legacy media has.
Mm-hmm.
None of the legacy media has any journalistic integrity.
Nope,
at
not
all.
one
Which is
iota.
why they're not the same.
Yep.
It's not the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's basically where we're going to end today's show.
Oh.
I know. But we can't go on forever. We have lives. We need sleep.
Avidos and good night.
Okay.
Did not movie reference. I know. You think like that would be really obvious, but there's going to be some people who don't. Wait, you don't know that movie reference?
What's?
Oh, you don't? Oh!
I have it in my head. Dang it. The name. The name
I'd
of it.
Stay and taste my first for champagne. Yes? No.
It's not coming to me. I know I've seen it.
Oh, poor Steven. There's going to be some people who are going to be very mad at him.
Very mad.
Very mad.
Very mad.
This is such a classic movie, man. I'm surprised you don't know.
Well, I know it. I've seen it.
Well, you can't seem to name it.
I cannot name it.
The hills are alive
with the sound of music. See? I've seen it. Julie Andrews.
Oh, now he gets it. Good job, bro.
I know who's in it. I've seen the movie. It was not coming to me. I'm like, I could see it in my mind's eye, the picture of even like the poster of The Sound of Music.
Right. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Totally believe him.
If you are watching on our video platforms, like YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Tell us how we're doing. And of course, if we can improve in any way. And if you want to criticize and attack Danny, feel free. I will allow it this week only.
Never. Yeah.
If you're following us on our text platforms, or if you want to follow us on our website, then check us out at theshrewddudes.com or on Facebook, Getter, Twitter, Parler. And you should know how to use those websites for follow, like, comment, echo. For those who are trying to follow us on Facebook, I haven't been able to post any of the videos to our Facebook page because Facebook isn't giving me a post button. Don't know why, but they're not.
That's weird.
Yeah, for the past month, I have not been able to upload any of our videos or share them to our Facebook page. Yeah. They've changed the way that pages operate, and no matter what I do, I cannot post it.
It's weird.
So I will let you know when that changes. I'm going to keep checking every once in a while. But for now, find somewhere else to follow us because you can't go there.
That's really weird.
All right. With that being said, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, aside from looking dope, we like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. We will see you on Thursday for our regularly scheduled Thursday live stream, which, of course, will be beginning at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll see you all then. Have fun. Enjoy the conversation. Join the commentary. Give us questions. Let us know how we're doing. That being said, have a great night. And as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.